Do you want to do a multi-class video?
Not really. I mean, it feels like, with all the character builds and stuff we've done recently, that's all we ever do.
Yeah, but I thought you really liked multi-classing in 5e D&D.
I do, but when you do multiclassing, you wound up missing out on those sweet high-level abilities.
Oh man, I wish I could get that multi-class feel and still get those awesome, sweet, sweet high-level abilities too.
Dave, what if I told you that there's a way to get those high-level abilities and still feel like you're multiclassing?
Do tell me more. Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave. Today I'm hanging out with
Nerdarchist Ted. And stay tuned as we tell you how to multiclass while being a single class character.
Hey, do you want D&D content that you can drop right into your game?
If the answer is yes, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
So like Ted said, we're going to talk about multiclassing without multiclassing. We're actually just going to build out different builds with feats in order to do such.
So feats, obviously, this is one of those optional rules in your Player's Handbook, and if your GM allows it, then there's some great ways to add some other class or class-like abilities into your character so you feel like you're multiclassing when you're really not.
So we've got three main categories that we break this down into. We've got your skilled character, we've got your spellcaster character, and we've got your warrior.
Your martial, if you will. And then we're also going to talk about some racial feats that wind up giving you some multi-class splashing feel.
Nice. So we're going to start off with the skilled characters, and that's pretty much going to be our rogues, our rangers,
our bards.
So with that, bard we actually kind of broke out and put them in their own little spot because they kind of fulfill a little bit of a different role. Obviously they have all the skills like the ranger and the rogue, but then they're also really great support characters as well.
So if you're looking to kind of add bard to your character, whatever you're playing, there's three feats that really give you some bardic splash. So if you take actor, inspiring leader, and skilled, you're going to give them a real good feeling. You don't need all of them. Any of them will progress you down that bardic path. Skilled winds up giving you, hey, you're more knowledgeable, so that, hey, I know a lot of stuff, falls into it. Actor, come on, you're charismatic, you can do a lot of fun stuff. An inspiring leader kind of gives you some of that buff aspect that the bard is known for.
And it also relies on your charisma, just like many of the bard abilities do.
Absolutely.
So next we move into the idea of ranger and rogue being skilled characters and how we can kind of get a little bit more of that into our character when we're playing something else.
All right, so where are we going to go for that one, Dave?
So we've got 5 different feats we're actually looking at. So we have skilled. That's going to give you 3 extra skills for your character. We have sharpshoot. That's going to make you more hard-hitting with those ranged attacks. We also have skulker, which, it kind of sounds skilled and also kind of sounds a lot like someone who might be a rogue and unsavory. We have alertness, and we have athlete.
Rogues, rangers, they're known to be able to hit harder, do some extra damage. They're known for, having more skills than the other character classes, and both of them are known to be more physical in the different things that they're going to do, whether it be, being stealth, climbing. So all of these feats wind up progressing you more in line with these other character classes.
Absolutely. So from there, we're going to jump down to our spellcasters.
Now, this is pretty easy. There's a number of feats that wind up giving you extra spellcasting abilities. So whether you're looking at Magic Initiate, whether you're looking at Spell Sniper, these are going to give you access to spells that even if you're not playing a spellcasting class, boom, now you've got them, and you're going to be able to choose where you're getting these spells from, and that selection is going to dictate what type of multiclassing you're doing with it.
Yeah, if you take those 2 feats, that gives you 3 cantrips and a first level spell. So obviously that is going to give you the feel no matter which of the spellcasters you're trying to splash in. Now we can get a little bit more specific and talk about, let's start with, I guess, the cleric.
All right, cleric, obviously the 2 that we already mentioned are going to work, but if you wind up going with healer, that's going to give you access to using your medicine kit to provide healing as an action. So therefore, you're going to get healing just like a cleric normally would without having to use spells.
Yeah, like you said, with the cleric and wizard, you get those magic initiate, spell sniper. They're going to make you feel like either one, depending on which way you go. But you can also take ritual caster as well to get some more access. And I think we were also looking at keen mind as well.
Keen Mind is going to really give you a wizard feel. With that, you wizards tend to be perceived as more intellectual. So being able to recall knowledge, it just winds up making you look and feel more like a wizard.
And it's also a half feat, so you still get at least 1+1 to those mentals. It's going to be helpful.
Absolutely. So I guess from here we're going to go and look at our martial classes.
We covered cleric wizard already, and how you can give that specific feel. That leaves druid, sorcerer, and warlock. For them, pretty much it's just going to be a magic initiate as well as spell sniper in order to splash in more from those particular spellcasting classes.
And if you want the bardic spells, magic initiate also works here as well.
Absolutely, same thing with the bard as you mentioned, and spell sniper as well could fit in just as easily. Really, those two combinations are just really versatile for splashing in whatever kind of spellcaster you want.
So now I guess we should go and look at our martial classes, and let's face it, there are a lot of combat-oriented feats in the Player's Handbook.
Yeah, a good portion of them are combat-oriented. So if you're playing maybe a spellcaster or cleric or one of the skilled characters, and you want to make them a little bit more warrior-like, these are the feats you're going to want to take a look at.
If you're playing any of your Gish characters and you want to be more martial, this is a great way to get that extra bang for your buck. Or, let's suppose you're going totally off the wall crazy. Oh, I'm going to play a spellcaster, but I'm taking a race that gives me access to weapons and or armor. This is a way to make you more Gish.
So we kind of put fighter by themselves, and then we lumped Barbarian and Paladin together. And really, a lot of it's just going to be aesthetic and how you describe those characters. But these feat combinations will also help support those descriptions.
Absolutely. So where do we want to start first?
First, we're going to start with fighter. There's a bunch of feats that you can take that are going to help you feel more like a fighter. Some of them are actually very specific to feeling like a specific fighter archetype as well.
So, obviously, let's start there. So, Martial Adept is a great feat. It's not as good as being a Battle Master, but you wind up getting a superiority die. You wind up getting a couple maneuvers to choose from. I really wish this was a feat that you could take multiple times so that you could keep getting more superiority dice, but alas, doesn't work that way. But it's definitely a great way to seem like you're more of a fighter.
So, all the armor feats are going to help you feel more like a fighter. Putting on better armor or even heavy armor master or mobility where it just increases how well you wear the armor are going to be all useful. They're going to give you a little bit more of a martial feel to your character. Great weapon fighter is another one if you're fighting with big weapons.
Being able to roll a higher damage potential is definitely going to help. And when you're hitting harder, you're hurting like a fighter would.
And also, not only that, under special circumstances, you get an extra attack as your bonus action, which if you're playing a class that doesn't get extra attacks, this is a way to get them in.
That certainly helps. Then last we have Shield Master.
Shield Master, if you want to feel more like a sword and board fighter, is going to help you. You can shield bash people and give you a little more control on the battlefield by either shoving them back or pushing them over. There are some other really great benefits to that. So I feel like that's another way to help your character feel a little more martial.
It's definitely going to give you some more options. So definitely fits for fighter for me. So next we're going to move on to Monk. And what do we know that monks are known for? They're known for having a higher movement, and they're known for punching things. So are there ways to do those things?
There absolutely are. And not only that, if you're Jackie Chan, you might need to beat someone with a ladder or something as well. So we got that portion covered as well.
So we have Mobile. That's going to give you an extra 10 feet of movement. Definitely fits with being a monk. And we got Tavern Brawler. So now your punches are actually going to do a die 4. Not as good as a monk, we know, but it's still better than the 1. And you're going to get proficiency with improvised weapons, which, as you said, would be what, certain types of monks would use.
Yeah, and also if you use an unarmed strike or an improvised weapon as a bonus action, you can grapple. So that's kind of cool. We kind of glossed over mobile. We should probably circle back to that one because that is going to allow you to move around the battlefield without drawing attacks of opportunity as long as you attack the people whose threatened area you're moving out of. As well as if you dash, you can ignore difficult terrain. So all of that is going to add up to a much more, mobile character.
So next we're going to move on to our Barbarian Paladin, feat selection. Now, we had some conversations off air amongst the two of us and Nerdator Doug, and there was some definite conversations of how are you lumping these two together. Now, I will say that when you look at the descriptions of what these abilities are, how you flavor the feats definitely is going to how it fits to one or the other.
Yeah, for sure. Both Paladin and Barbarian have certain things in common. One, they're both heavy hitters. They do it in a different way. One does it through rage, the other does it through smites. They tend to use big, heavy weapons, and they both are kind of tanky. Barbarians do it by having resistance to a lot of damage, and your Paladin is going to do it by slathering on a lot of armor.
So we are going to be looking at Savage Attacker, we're going to be looking at Great Weapon Master, and we're going to be looking at Tough.
Yeah, all three of these feats are going to add to that. Savage Attacker, rerolling dice in order to try and get a higher damage amount is going to help. We already talked about the benefits of using Great Weapon Fighter, so that's got some stuff in there as well. And then Tough is 2 more hit points per level. That is literally like having, 4 higher for your Constitution.
So regardless of the selection, if you're using Savage Attacker, well, perhaps as your Paladin or your quote unquote Paladin, you're calling upon your god and you're actually hitting. It's going to be a higher damage threshold, a higher damage minimum that you're going to wind up looking at. So whether you're swinging harder and screaming in rage, or whether you're calling upon divine justice to be brought upon your enemies, it's going to work. It's just how you describe what's going on. As your barbarian, you're shrugging off the damage and you're laughing as your enemies, bring at you. As your paladin, well, perhaps you're claiming it as, deflection, or it's bouncing off your armor and, you manage to just, muscle through without a problem. But Tough works the same way for both. Again, it just comes down to that description.
Yeah, I mean, hit points are an abstraction anyway. I do love the idea of every time your paladin uses Savage Attacker, I like the idea that the player at the table says a prayer to their deity as they roll the dice. And depending on how well that roll is, determines whether your god has answered your prayers or not.
So as we're, talking about, all of these great feats, there's another thing that we should say is great, and that's going to be D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond is pretty great, and it did make making this video a heck of a lot easier because we're able to sort through and figure out what kind of stuff we wanted to look at, what feats we needed to use to make these builds happen. It's going to make it easier for when you're building your characters.
Yeah, I know I've done a lot of just hit the random button to see what kind of characters pop out, and it's made some pretty interesting and amazing choices. Things that I hadn't considered, but after doing, I want to play that character now.
Or sometimes they're interesting.
Well, however you want to play it, D&D Beyond is awesome. There's loads of great content over there. Even if you want to just go check out the videos and the articles and just the basic SRD stuff.
Yes, there's tons of, like Ted just mentioned, tons of free stuff you can dig into. D&D Beyond is Nerdarchy's web app of choice. You should check it out.
All right, so now we're going to kind of look at some of the cool racial feats that have come out and how it's going to kind of affect multiclass. So let's start off with dwarf.
So Ted said start off with dwarf, but we can lump gnome and halfling in here as well. Squat nimbleness is going to increase your movement speed. Obviously, we know anything that increases our movement speed and mobility on the battlefield is going to give us more of a monk feel. So if you couple that with mobile, you can get another 15 feet of movement, I think, and that feels very monk-like to me.
Absolutely. So I guess next we can move on to Wood Elf, and they have Wood Elf magic, which is literally going to give you druid spells.
Yes, if you combine that with some of the other options we mentioned earlier, that is going to be a really strong feel for druidic magic in addition to whatever else it is your character does.
So Wood Elf we know makes a great ranger. So if you want to be like a ranger druid, totally be an awesome build.
Oh yeah, I love that combination. It is a great idea. For half orc, we have Orcish Fury. This is a great one. It's one of those ones that we call a half feat because you're going to get a bonus to either strength or con. Feeling very martial right there.
Absolutely.
If you attack with a simpler martial weapon, they can add an extra die of damage of the same type.
Only going to be able to use this once per rest, but once per rest, you're going to be able to just hit harder, which is always nice.
Absolutely. And then finally, when you use your Relentless Endurance, you can use a reaction to make an attack.
You're getting extra attacks, you're getting to do extra damage, and you're getting a +1 stat. How does this not sound like being a fighter?
Or any other kind of militant class or martial class. So it's a great add if you happen to be playing a half-orc.
Absolutely. If we look at the Drow have the Drow high magic. It's definitely going to add some extra magic, extra casting into whatever character you're playing.
Absolutely. Then we have our half-elf, half-orc, and humans can all take Prodigy. This is going to be a great feat if you want to add more skills into your character and be more like a skilled character. You're going to get a language, you're going to get a skill, and you are also going to get a tool. But more than that, you're also going to get expertise in one of those.
Regardless of what you make as this selection, you are definitely going to fit into that skilled category. Whether you go ranger, whether you go rogue, whether you go bard, it all fits and it's fabulous.
Finally, last but not least, we have Snurfnedlin magic. So if you're playing a deep gnome and you want to add more magic into your character, this is one of the most powerful feats in the game, in my opinion. You get non-detection at will, and then you get 3 other spells as well, and they're really good spells.
So what spells do they wind up getting?
They get non-detection at will, super strong. They get blindness, deafness. They get Disguise Self, and they get Blur. So 3 decent level spells once per day, and non-detection at will, super strong. And that is definitely going to make you feel like a caster, especially if you're going for like an illusionist type feel.
So that definitely works in my book. If you're trying to add some wizard to your gnome.
Absolutely. That would be a great way to do it, especially when you start combining it with the other things. You're going to have a slew of spells and magic you can throw around without actually being a spellcaster.
All around, there's some great ways to add multiclassing without actually having to sacrifice those awesome high-level abilities. Yeah, you're not going to get Action Surge and, Arcane Recovery. You're not going to be able to get some of the really signature aspects of a particular class, but you're definitely going to be able to get the feel for whichever class you're trying to do through feats.
Without sacrificing those high-level abilities. So we want to take a moment to thank our awesome patrons for making this video possible and what we do possible. Hey, maybe you want to check out our Patreon. We give a link in the description. You can see what we're doing over there. We're doing products where we take the stuff we talk about and turn it into D&D content you can have right into your game. Our patrons get it for less. They get it first. We have other great benefits over there. You can take a look at those.
So if you want to continue the conversation, down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.